Junction Festival was set up in 2001 by myself and two other colleagues. We were down in Clonmel and we were looking at Kilkenny, where they were having festivals every week or every second week, and in Clonmel there was no festivals. So we set up the festival in 2001 and it doubled in size for each of the first 4 years, which to us meant there was a response from the community, that there was a need within the community or a desire, and then it increased to 50% for the next 2 years. So by 2006 we had grown immeasurably. We were also at a time when there was public funding available, so that helped to lift us from what was a very small festival to being a mid-scale multi-arts festival, which is what we are. So our mission has changed over the years, but we've currently defined it as a year-round arts organisation which produces, presents and promotes arts events in Clonmel, in the Clonmel region, culminating in an annual 10-day summer festival presenting the best of local, national and international arts. So we've gone from being this focus on 10 days in the year to actually having a focus throughout the year which culminates in those 10 days. Part of that was because we were doing stuff in 10 days and we felt we were getting everybody all excited about the arts, and then we were disappearing, and you know, I remember meeting a young lad in Clonmel one day, and I said, you know, and it was in August. I said, well, how's the summer been? He said, well, the festival's over, and we've nothing to do now. So that kind of we responded to that. That same young man is now on an exchange in Finland on Erasmus as a sculptor. So arts was very important to him. So we've started, and the use of Slack spaces has been very much part of that. So just to give you an idea of where we're at, I mean, the first year I think we had a budget of about 12,000. Our turnover is in and around 330,000 a year, and I think important in terms of funding to give you these rough figures, in that our earned income is 80,000, our grant support is 130,000, sponsors and patrons about 100,000, and the way that's made up is the way we spend that, you can see below. But I think the important thing is that our grant support is about 130,000. That's Arts Council, leader funding, Borough Council funding, and other grants that we can source. But we have to raise more than half. There was a time when it was about a third, and a third. Our sponsorship and patrons is down, our earned income is down, and that happened over the last number of years. Certainly sponsorship reduced since 2008, but earned income has reduced, not so much in that we've stopped, that there's been a downward trend in ticket sales, but we've stopped doing big events where we had a big turnover. Up until maybe about 2010, we were looking at doing very big events. We had No Fit State Circus, who will be, I think there's a group from Limerick here, who will be in Limerick, in the City of Culture, and they're fantastic. Hugely expensive, only possible with a grant from the British Council of 25,000. And we had acts like Duke Special and Blizzards, and they tended to be costly, drive sales, but actually not generate much income for the festival. In around 2010, we shifted more towards working with groups on creating events in Clonmel. So this event, the Charivari in 2010, had Lux, which is a company from Donegal, and Fidget Feet, which is an aerial dance company, and they worked together with the local community and created this extraordinary parade, which involved about 100 people from the local community. So there was a big local buy-in to that, but also a very high level of professionalism. This year, most recently, I've always had this dream of doing a high wire act, but a high wire act actually lasts about 12 minutes. And you know, how can you make a big deal out of a high wire act? Well, we got a local youth drama group this is on the bottom of this here, the local youth drama group to work with Wee Bullock from Wexford, and they did an event on one side of the river, so that would be on this side of the river, and then we had a band playing on the bridge, and we had Clonmel, our marching band, who've been making music in Clonmel for 42 years, and this was an opportunity for them to have 1,500 people watching them, while another 500 people were in the park, another 500 on the bridge. It was an extraordinary event. It lasted an hour and a half. Everybody came to see the high wire, which lasted 12 minutes, and then the crowd just disappeared. We did have sort of 28 degrees and sun all that week, so that was a real pleasure in it. So that's sort of our focus has shifted from big events to much more community-oriented events. Another event we did this year, We Can Be Heroes, working with 8 young musicians who've grown up with the festival. They're now 23, 24, aimed at being professional musicians, we got Gavin Glass, who's a producer, to work with them for 2 months, building up their skills and learning a whole set of music. And we invited Jerry Fish, Jack L, Paul Walsh from Roy 7 to come along and be guest artists, and we did a big concert together. So again, it's mixing high-level professionalism with community, and the end result was fantastic. Another community event, we've been developing a choir for the last 4 years, and each year they've performed. This year they performed with Micheál O'Sullivan in a choral a piece that he had written called Madison's Descent. It was his European premiere. But they're also working year round, so they're doing a Schubert. They've just done a Schubert Mass. They're going to do a Haydn Mass in March, and then we're preparing to do a concert with Orfeo next year. And we've already commissioned work for them for 2015. An Arts Council bursary has enabling us to commission an Austrian composer to do a piece around Micheál O'Sullivan's, Michael Cody's poem All Souls. So that's just to give you an idea of the kind of work that we were doing. I'm kind of trying to get to the funding part, but it does tie in with what I'm talking about. I'll linger on this one a little bit, because this is our Cafés, Carte, Blanche program. Our response, Clonmel is lucky in that it doesn't have, I was talking to one of the people here during the break, Clonmel doesn't have a lot of disused spaces by comparison to a lot of towns. It has good industry around it, a lot of pharma, and we have Bulmers, of course. But in 2008 we started seeing shops appearing, empty shop premises appearing, and our response to it was to create the Cafés, Carte, Blanche, where we took over a premise, we commissioned an artist to create a space, a cafe. The reason we chose cafes is because art spaces, just like museums, can be a little bit intimidating to the public. There's definitely users within the community for the arts. That's who they fund our patrons, our friends, and the people who go to the shows. But there's also members of the community who are not terribly comfortable. We've learned this from every year we'll do a theatre show in a cafe, and we will get people at that who will not go to the theatre show in the theatre. So it's about people's, and again, it's about what people are familiar with. So we thought if we do a cafe program that people will come in, and they did. This was a storytelling cafe. This was a hip hop cafe. This was a literary cafe. They were open for 10 days for the period of the festival. So we would start on a Monday preparing. We would ask so we would get access to a premise for 2 weeks, 3 weeks maximum. And we would start on a Monday with the artist, and they would be assigned a group of trainees, teenagers between the age of 14 and 18 or 19, who would work with them preparing the space. If we needed to get a Burco, and we'd always have the fire extinguishers. Now, it was interesting listening to the last presentation, because it is a temporary pop-up space, because it is for 10 days, we work closely with the fire authority and the Borough Council, but they're very understanding and very supportive. So we're not hit with rates. The owner is not hit with rates. The fire authority will come in and do a check. They don't do anything official, but they give us advice as to what to do. We, of course, do our health and safety, and we make sure that we have our health and safety, and it's covered by our insurance. We've thankfully had 5 very good years of this program. I mean, I think at our peak we had 7 of these cafes opened 1 year. And one of the things that happened out of this program was that was this awareness of meeting the young artist in Clonmel who had been a trainee in 2 of these, 2 years running, and him saying that he was kind of, well, what am I going to do? The festival's over. So we actually, one of the spaces we particularly liked, we got on very well with the owner, and we approached him about taking it year-round. And we opened up a year-round cafe. The cafe was staffed by volunteers. We had we opened Tuesday through Saturday, and there were 2 3-hour shifts a day. So there was one person on duty. Our office was upstairs, so there was always somebody else in the building. And the owner was very happy to see it used. We paid rent, but it was reasonable, and the Borough Council have been understanding about rates, and we have a very good deal from the bin company. So it is about, as Denise was saying, it's about asking, can you please? I mean, I know the owner, in this case, it suits him very well to have us in there. We look after the space. I was interested to hear you can get grants to renovate it, because one of our big things is the fact that the building is cold. So getting in some decent heating and insulation would be great. And we are eco-conscious, so that would be super. So the cafe idea has worked very, very well for us. Out of this program, we started the idea of the trainee program. So we started bringing in teenagers between the age of 14, and because we'd always have teenagers coming in looking to be volunteers, but you can't really have a volunteer who's under 18, because volunteers have to be, I mean, there are child protection and health and safety and all that kind of stuff. But we didn't want to say no to them. So by starting a trainee program, we charged them €35 for a 2-week period. LIT, LSAD has a campus in Clonmel, and they pay us, they sponsor this program, and one of their lecturers will be on hand when we do the induction day and when we give them their certificates at the end of the 2 weeks. Those kids get a lanyard as a trainee. It allows them to go see every show. Some of them go to see all the shows twice and 3 times. So they're getting an education, they're getting to work hand in hand with artists. Many of them are the kind of kids that are going to go on to art school of one kind. Some of them, one of them is a solicitor's daughter, and she is intent on being a solicitor, but she's going to be a wonderful solicitor because she's going to be arts aware. And I think these, so it's been a program that's been really, really good for us, and I think it's been really good for the kids. We're going on. I'm actually looking this for next year, and I'll come to it in a moment, where I'm actually looking at creating a show with a core group of these. So, funding your dreams. Funding your dreams. I mean, how many people here are from local authorities? So there's a few people from local authorities. So, but I get the impression most of you are heritage rather than arts. Is that right?
Yeah.
Any arts? Oh, good. Right. Good. Okay. So there's a bit of a mix there. As I said, my inspiration for starting the festival was the fact that I'd been working in Clonmel for 10 years running Gallaglass Theatre Company, which was really an export business. We would bring to town actors to make shows, and then we would take them out of town. So it was like Bulmers importing the apples, making the Bulmers, and then exporting it. And we wanted to work more locally with the community, and then the community responded so well. One of the things that I have found, and I'm always learning, the lovely thing about a festival is it has an annual cycle. So after you do the festival, you can do the evaluation, and then you can start again, or at least you can try and fix the things that you've done, rather than having this pressure 52 weeks of the year. There is a cycle to it. Having a clear mission and having that articulated, as you saw on the first slide, so you can remember it. It's an arts organisation working year-round towards a 10-day festival in the year. It has become, I would start every presentation and pretty much every application with that now. That's who we are. It articulates it clearly, and I think it's very helpful when you go looking for money, whether that is with a funding agency or with the local authority. You go talk to Denise in Limerick, what is your mission? If you've got it in a sentence, it makes a big difference. The other two things that I think are essential when going looking for money is having a good idea of the budget and a good idea of the timeline. Again, it's confidence. A lot of getting funding, from my point of view, is the confidence. You can give when you get the opportunity, if you get the opportunity to talk to people. When we're looking now, I mean, we have a number of projects we're working on for next year. We have a number of projects we're working on for 2015. And what we will always do is we look at the project, we look at what are the key elements of the project, and we try and outline possible sources of funding. They will include grant bodies, and they will include private patrons we think might be interested in what we're doing, philanthropies, trust funds, all of the above. And we try and draw up onto, I mean, I have a spreadsheet. I've got a board meeting tomorrow night, and I have a spreadsheet drawn up with the board, and on that spreadsheet will be the project, who are the key partners involved in it, who are the possible funders. I'm also looking to my board to see, do they know of anybody? Is there anybody they know who's particularly interested in youth, particularly interested in community, that we might bring this project to, because it's getting the right fit for funding. I think there's a danger, always a danger in looking at what funding is available and fitting your project to the funding. I find when you work the other way around, you have a project, you have a clear idea of the project, and then go looking to see what funding fits that. You stand a much better chance of staying sane for a start, but also realising your ambitions. A concise document about the form. So if you get 2 minutes with somebody or 3 minutes, the first time I met the Bulmers rep, I had Neil Tobin I was promoting Neil Tobin in the Clonmel Arms Hotel, and I was looking, yes, and it was sold out, and I came downstairs, and the technician, Neil Tobin's technician, came up to me and said he's just met some of the technicians that are working with Bulmers filming an ad in Clonmel and was wondering whether they could come in to see Neil Tobin. And I said, if they can introduce me to the man who's paying them, yes. So they introduced me to John Keogh, and I had 3 minutes with him. Bulmers have funded projects I've been working on for 20 years. Since then, every year I have, in one way or another, they funded Gallowglass all the years I've been with them. They funded Junction Festival. I'm now talking to the fourth or fifth John Keogh. John has long since gone. I'm still in touch with John. He moved on to a different company, and I still keep in touch with him. But after that there was Orla, and after Orla was Marcus, and after Marcus was Sean, and now I'm dealing with Fiona. And it's about those relationships. To me, it's all about the relationships. But when you're given 3 minutes, won't work. It won't work. It's having that. We are an arts organisation working year round to promote, present, and produce work in Clonmel, culminating in a 10-day festival that promotes the arts and the life and times we live in. It's having that close at hand, close to mind. It's having a 1-page document, not a 17-page document, or maybe a 5-page document with some photographs. As you will see, I love photographs. I believe in photographs. I think they are great, and with modern technology, it's possible. If I go back, 30 years ago when we were trying to do photo shoots and go through contact sheets and pick out the cost and the burden of it, was something else. Anyway, so have a concise document about the project. So here are projects I'm working on at the moment. Our View is a project I'm working on in Elm Park, which is a disadvantaged area in Clonmel, about identity and perspective. I'm working with 3 artists who are from Clonmel who have been at NCAD in Crawford, and they're coming back to work in their town. And we're doing it in association with 3 groups that work in that area. I mean, immediately there are places. There are the Irish Youth Foundation. There are the Rapid area would be 2 of the areas that we're talking to, and again, that's a project I see should not be difficult to fund because it ticks a lot of boxes. It's also, I think, a very exciting project. The Grand Bandstand, we want to build and design a portable demountable stage and covering. We have an architect whom I approached. He was a sponsor of Junction Festival in 06, 07 and 08. He stopped in 09, funnily enough. But he remained a supporter of the festival. He would come to events. I approached him about doing this project, and he's delighted. Now he is going to contribute 8 2-hour modules to the students in the high school on building, and we've also gone to Medite, who are they build the MDF, this stuff, and they not only will give us materials, but they have some builders on hand, so that might work with the guys. I'm still a ways out on funding that, but I know what my targets are, and I'm hoping my board tomorrow will have a few more ideas. And the third project is The Stories That Live in the Streets. Very exciting project. Our teenagers who've been 3-4 years as trainees, I decided I wanted to do a project with them, and this is a project that's been in the back of my mind for years. It's the idea of doing an audio promenade tour of Clonmel. so that people put on a headset and go for a tour. It's using technology that the young people are comfortable with, and so I felt it's great to get them involved. And I have now got a team of artists who are going to work with us. The Australians, that's my next one. What are the links with Australia? Can we find funding? Can the Australian embassy contribute money to it? Again, it's working with youth, so that will open certain doors. And it's about Clonmel. So I'm looking at the organisations in Clonmel that are rooted in the community. Groups, organisations like CPAM, the engineering company that's doing very, very well globally, although there's not much work in Clonmel. I know that they're very attached to Clonmel, and it's how to reach them. A lot of the time with sponsorship, it's actually that 3 minutes. It's getting that 3 minutes, I have found. I mean, I think we have a good story to tell. Over the years, I've learned how to tell the story well. We have the fancy photographs, we have the slide projections, but it's getting that 5 minutes, and that's where a good board of directors is a key element. So examples of an action plan. There's we've just been talking about the project, The Stories That Live in the Street. We have poet Grace Wells, we have the Australian Theatre Makers, and we have an Irish artist from Drogheda. One of the things I'm always inclined towards in terms of funding a project is partnerships. And I'm quite sure that this would apply equally well with heritage projects. Is like, if you're going to put if you're going to put the time and the energy into putting something together, who else wants to play? Is there, and even in this room, and I mean, these are events that are ideal for finding links with people in other towns who have similar interests, to see whether, if we're going to do this, would you be interested? Can we swap? Have you got facilities? Because all of those things reduce your need for real money. And the real money is the hardest thing to come by. So the South Tipperary Arts Officer, we got a youth grant to start this project. We've put an application into the Arts Council for a youth grant. I have been speaking to the Youth Federation, and as I mentioned, sponsorship local firms with youth interests. We're also going to introduce a new thing, which is a patron commissioner. And one of the things, I'm kind of jumping ahead on some of the slides, but we have a friends scheme. Lots of theatres, theatre companies, arts organisations will have a friends scheme. We have, being it's Clonmel and Bulmers and the apple orchards, we have Golden Apples who give us €100. We have Friendly Bees who give us €100. We have Golden Apples who give us €300, and we have Regal Orchards who give us €500. And we will have around 100 between the three categories. It's a significant. It will raise us about 10,000 a year. That actually slipped off over the last few years. And when I actually analysed it, it wasn't because of the recession. It was because we were not looking after our patrons. And that's one of the key learning that we've gained, is about stewarding your patrons, about looking after the people who care about you. They are your family. So if you've got a group of people who are prepared to give you €100, look after them. I mean, it's as simple as that. We stop short of sending them Christmas or not birthday cards, but we do send a Christmas card and a thank you. But that Christmas card is a postage stamp and an envelope, so we put in what we're doing in January and February. So it's about sort of showing our appreciation. So over the winter time, we're now doing a number of events. We have one next week. We have a show on called A Wine Goose Chase. It's a very nice show about wine and wine appreciation, done by an actress, and we're doing it with an extra glass of wine and some tapas, and it's an opportunity for us to now our patrons will be paying for it, but it'll be a nice evening, and most of them know each other, so we're doing it as a sort of a Christmas party. But we're looking to introduce this patron commissioners, so we think that among the golden apple, the €300, we can find 8 who will go up to €500 as patron commissioners for the Stories That Live in the Streets. So we're going to ask them on a one-off, will they step up next year to enable us to do this project? So it will bring in an extra €2,000, I think we're going to do it, or maybe we're going to try and get 10 of them, or we have a couple in mind that we're going to get 1,000 from. So we have to just key, and there'll be conversations which will have to happen over the next couple of months. So we bring in that, but also those patron commissioners will be invited to trialing of the show, to meet the Australian artists. We'll have a wine reception when the Australians are over, so that they're given special treatment, and then they're given an opportunity to be there when we open the show, and they've been part of the process. It's something we haven't done before, so we will see how it goes, but I'm confident that we can do it. There's some of our fabulous trainees who have just finished making this lovely golden wall, and of them, 3 of them are now part of this. This was 3 years ago, and 3 of them have stayed with us, and they're part of this Stories That Live in the Streets. In terms of sponsorship, again, I'm very lucky in that Clonmel has a hinterland of very solid industry. We have 4 or 5 good pharmaceutical firms. We have Bulmers, we have Medite, plus we have some big international engineering companies. And they have been great in supporting Junction Festival. But there's 2 types of sponsorship. There's the CSR type sponsorship, which is the corporate social responsibility, where a firm has a budget and they will give a certain amount within the community to support projects. Usually that comes with a check. Sometimes there is a photograph and a press release in the newspaper. From my point of view, they're the less interesting relationships. The commercial sponsorship or the engaged sponsorship relationship is far more interesting, where the company wants to get involved with you. With Abbott Vascular, for example, we've had managers come and help us clean old warehouses that we're going to use for a show. With Bulmers, there's always an exchange. They want to sell product. So those relationships are more interesting, where they go out to lunch and have a chat about what you're doing, and they're really, really involved. They're the ones that survive, and they're the ones that are going up now, while some of the others are falling off because they send us the check and they get forgotten. So building relationships, stewarding, it's the same with the patrons, it's the same with the sponsors, it's looking after them. Staff engagement, how can we engage with the staff in this company, make it more important so they're talking about us. And visibility, do they want visibility? Does the boss want visibility? Is it an ego thing? Is it a branding thing? It's our responsibility to know what they want and how we can respond to it. So simple keys to successful sponsorship. Keep in contact with the sponsor in the build-up to the event. Look after the sponsor during the event, and that's often the hardest time. When you're at your busiest, you need to have time for your sponsor. And send up a follow-up event with images where the logo is prominent. I went into Irish Ferries recently to meet the person who deals with their sponsorship, and he had the Spree Festival report on the desk. I knew they sponsored Spree, but I thought that was very provocative, because he was basic, and he did bring it up, and he said these guys do it well. And I mean, I do commend Spree for the work they do. I was just a bit like, so I know what the benchmark is, what he expects for next year, and that's clear. They're good relationships. When it's clear, it's easy. In terms of patron scheme, which I've talked about, nobody gives you their last €100. So if they give you 100, they might give you 300 if you look after them. Stewarding, we've introduced VIP seating at certain events for our sponsors. We have patrons events. We're doing a bus trip to Dublin to go to the Abbey Theatre in January, and we've asked the Abbey Theatre, will they give us coffee when we arrive, and Fiach McAneil is going to come and join us and talk about the show. They wouldn't get that without Junction Festival, so we're providing something special, and it'll help them to it'll cement that relationship. And regular contact, but not too much. Occasionally consultation. You know, we've done feedback sessions or round tables where we've called in some members of the public and some of our patrons and get ideas from them. And I just will note that the bottle of Bulmers in the back of that photograph is something that would probably be better if we airbrushed out. So, sources of funding, philanthropists and foundations. There are some philanthropists in Ireland, and they're rare, and it was just starting to kick off in 2008, and they kind of buried themselves, but there are some good ones there, and there are some foundations, though not many. When you look in the UK, there's a lot more. Funded is a really good source of funding if you have a clear idea what you want, and you feel that the demographic of where you're aiming are computer literate. I've recently learned that in Tipperary only 57% of people have access to broadband. You know, we can't go online all. We need our hard copies because they're just not reaching the people. With Funded, it's about, I know the people in business to arts very well. I've done the process a couple of times. They're not for Junction. If you don't have a good campaign, it's not going to work. You need to know exactly what you're going to do, what you're going to offer, but also how you're going to run your campaign. And most of the campaigns
online. Explain what Funded is.
Okay. Sorry.
Some people won't know what it is.
Would you like me to explain what Funded is?
Yeah,
okay. So Funded is an online crowdsourcing. Sorry, that was very presumptuous of me. Crowdsourcing is something I think it's probably started in America, where basically you get a lot of people to give you a little bit of money. I mean, Barack Obama did it. Yes. So Funded is funded.ie. It's run by Business to Arts, and basically you put up a project. You say, I'm going to open up a pop-up shop, pop-up museum, and we need €5,000. So we are going to, we want people to give us, if you give us €100, if you give us €10, we will invite you to the opening. If you give us €50, we'll invite you to the opening, and we will give you a photograph of, or some artifact, some image. If you give us €100, we will invite you to a preview with a celebrity, exactly. If you give us €500, hell, you know. you can let them. So it's about offering those things. You get a certain amount of time. You put a time frame, say 8 weeks on it. During that 8 weeks, you need to be online. You need to have an online campaign. You need to have an offline campaign as well for those people who wouldn't be regularly online. But you need to be Facebooking it. You need to be tweeting it. You need to have it in your local newspaper. We're doing a Funded campaign. It's a way we can make things happen together. They've been very, 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 very successful. One of the key to it is to have a stash of cash in your back pocket. So if you go for €5,000 and you get to €3,500 and you have 2 minutes to go, you want to have €1,500 that you can put on yourself, because if you don't reach the 5,000, you lose the 3,500. So it is really important to have that resource to top up at the end. Two I've been in, we've been kind of waiting, and we've just made it over the line. They were reasonably modest requests. But it's something people like to do, and it has been very, very successful. Bagpacking is great, because bagpacking does two things. It allows you to meet people.
Yeah.
So we do bagpacking twice a year, and we will raise €1,500 in 2 days, which is great. But we also get to meet people, and if we have something coming up, we have a flyer and we're chatting. So we also did a gala dinner. Our board ran a gala dinner. We had a celebrity. Micheál O'Sullivan last year was doing a concert. He had Claudia Boyle singing with him, who's this devastatingly knockout soprano. I mean, her voice is knockout. She's a knockout. She's just wow. And she was wearing a dress that was cut down to here, a red dress, blonde hair. She came into this room we had 90 people. We charged €90 per ticket. It's expensive for dinner, but she was worth it.
She's
fantastic. She's unbelievable. But she gave it. She went right down the middle, swirling. I won't do it. I have to say it to her. But she was fantastic. We raised €3,500 that night, and and we did a good thing. We had, people will remember when they see her in La Scala, they go, "I saw her in Clonmel." So it's about those special moments. What do you have that's special, in terms of artifacts, in terms of celebrities, in terms of knowledge? That's special. People would like to be part of it, and if they're going to give you something to respond. So this is all about stewarding. It's about looking after the people. Promotions. Back 20 years ago, I had Neil Tobin. I think we earned £1,000. That was real money. From having Neil Tobin do his night, and I met the man from Bulmers. We're still doing it. We do 3 or 4 concerts over the winter, or events over the winter. Doubly, once we can keep in touch with our audience, so they're not left 50 weeks a year without seeing sight no sound of it, but also because we can generate money. It can be hard, you can lose money, one has to be very careful with that, and it can be a lot of work. There you go. I'm under time constraint here, but thank you all for listening. I hope some of that was interesting, and I'd be delighted to answer questions.